all these concepts, love, all these concepts that we keep coming across in spirituality, the love, faith, surrender, grace. It's very important to understand these concepts in proper context because these constitute the fundamentals of spirituality. And once those concepts are clear, then it helps us align our direction through proper effort, right? So we may be solving a problem, but if we are not solving it the right way, then it's not very optimal utilization of our efforts, thoughts, emotions, and so on. So today we will discuss this topic. Look forward to another engaging session. Let's get started with our opening prayers, and then we'll get really deep into this topic today. So let me share my screen and we will get started. All right, so let me get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening once again. So let's get started. Quick context, we were actually on 4.11 and this is where we covered that everybody is following the path of God, knowingly or unknowingly. And then we went through the principle of reciprocation. And then we started touching upon the concept of surrender. And as part of that, we picked up a shloka 18.62, which talks about the 6 principles of surrender, out of which 4 we have covered. The remaining 2 we are going to cover today. And in addition to that, we will cover the concept of grace as well. So let me get started. I'll recite the started then. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. So in this shloka, if you look at it, we have the word surrender and then tat prasadat param. That means by his grace. So we will cover both the concepts, surrender and grace, both. So let's get started. Do we have any participants who want to recite? I can see if you
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe, Preeti ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Preeti ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Preeti ji. Radhe Radhe. Wonderful.
Right. Radhe Radhe. Sandhya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Sandhya.
Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam.
Very nice. Wonderful, Sandhya.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, Sumesh ji, please go ahead.
Sumesh ji.
Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, Radhe everyone. Tameva saranam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param santim sthanam prapsyasi saswatam.
Very nice, Sumesh ji. So Sumesh ji, Sam ji, Shyam ji, if we were to have a gold medal for who has been attending the classes regularly, it would be a photo finish, I'm sure. Right from day one, you have all been there. So very nice, Sumesh ji. Let's continue.
Radhe Radhe, Samji, please go ahead.
जी राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं सतानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतं राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe. Very nice, Samji. Yes, we can pick up few
Yeah.
more.
Radhe Radhe, Shyamji, please go ahead.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम् राधे राधे
Very nice, Shyamji. Whenever we call Shyamji, Samji would respond. Okay, it would happen previously. Sometimes the other way around as well, because both have been fairly regular. All right, let's pick few more hands.
Yes. Radhe Radhe, Dineshji, please go ahead.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्य शाश्वतं राधे राधे
Very nice, Dineshi. Radhe Radhe. Wonderful.
Yeah. Akshata ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
राधे राधे तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्
Very nice, Akshata ji. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe 3-4 more hands. We can do that quickly.
Yes, sure. Pragi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Sorry. त्वमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very nice, Pragi ji. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Uday ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe ji.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतं राधे राधे
Wonderful, Uday ji. Okay, let's take 1, 2, 3 more hands.
Yes. Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Rahul ji.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्
Wonderful, Rahul. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Shruti ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Radhe Radhe, Shruti.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्. Thank you.
Very nice, Shruti. Radhe Radhe. Okay, we can take 2 more and then we'll get started. I can see
Rupa ji, Radhe Radhe, please
one
go
more
ahead.
hand, Shelly ji. I'm seeing.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Radhe Radhe, Rupa ji.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परं शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very nice, Rupa ji. Radhe Radhe.
Thank
I
you.
can see Shelly ji.
Radhe
You're raising hand for the
Shelly
first time.
ji,
Please go ahead.
last but not the least, you are the one.
Chapter 18, verse 2, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Tvameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhaveन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्. राधे राधे.
Very nice, Shelly ji. Where are you joining us from?
Ghaziabad, India.
Ghaziabad. Good to have you on the session. Okay, so let's get started. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, surrender exclusively unto him. He's referring to himself, Ishvara, in the previous verse, and that's where he's continuing. With your whole being, O Bharat, by his grace you will attain perfect peace and eternal abode. So let's get started. um, on this important concept that we were having a discussion on. So quick recap. Okay, what we are going to cover today is what is grace of God? Why do we need grace of God to begin with? And what is the price tag to get this grace? And do we get any special offers on this grace? Is all we are going to pick up today. Now, 6 aspects of surrender is what we were discussing. The first one is desire in accordance with the desire of God. Second one, not to desire against the desire of God. Third one, to have firm faith that God is protecting us. And then the fourth one is having an attitude of gratitude towards God. Fifth one, possessing everything as belonging to God is what we are going to discuss. A little bit of gratitude as well. And then the sixth one is to give up the pride of having surrendered. These are the 6 principles of surrender. Quick recap. What do we need to surrender? Right? Is it our body? Is it our senses, intellect? So God says in Panchadashi, Mane Manushyanam Karanam Bandhamokshyo. Mind alone is the cause of bondage and liberation. And Vedvyas further goes on to say that it is actually just the mind which is the cause of bondage and liberation. So we must surrender the mind to God. So what do we need to surrender? It is mind. And when we surrender our mind, everything else is automatically surrendered. It just follows that way because mind is the governor of our senses. So when we say mind here, it refers to, it encompasses the intellect as well. Manchit, buddhi, ahankar, everything is covered as part of that. So it's a mind that needs to be surrendered. Now we looked at these principles to desire according to the desire of God. It's the leaf example we said where we subject ourselves to the will of God. Also, we looked at not to desire against the desire of God. And then the question came up, how do we know that? And we said we do it to the best of our ability. And invariably, we'll get that feeling, yes, I did align to God's will. And in cases where we don't, the purity of intention and sincerity at heart is our insurance policy. Because God is seated within, He will still give us credit, even though we might have gotten it wrong, with regards to aligning it to God's will. And God understands that. He knows that we are trying. We may not be perfect always, but the purity of intention is something that we can always exercise in every situation. And if we do that, we still get credit for that. Third one is firm faith that God is protecting us. We need to have that faith, not that my relatives, my friends, my bank balance, my insurance, these are my safeguards. Doesn't matter, none of it. So the firm faith that God is protecting us. So whenever we worry unnecessarily about things around us or what is going to happen in my old age, will I have my son and daughter to take care of me, or who will take care of it if I fall sick, and all those kind of things, insecurities that we have, they are actually violating this principle. God has a plan for everybody, and we just need to have an open mind that we'll embrace whatever you have for me. When we start worrying unnecessarily, especially when we get anxious and insecure about things around us, that's when we are violating this principle, because we have to have a firm faith that our Father, eternal Father, has a plan for everyone. And whatever it is, we will embrace it rather than thinking that I can control it or I'll do something about it. We looked at it, some of the examples that, he's arranged for food for everyone, and similarly, he has a plan for everyone. Fourth one was having an attitude of gratitude towards God for every little thing that we have. We said that in ordinary situations or context, extraordinary things get overlooked, and everything is extraordinary, right from how we took birth on this earth to the very fact that we are roaming this earth with all the faculties, including our mind, eyes, the able body, the ability to think, the ability to progress, air, water, sun, moon, everything is a blessing of God. So it's not that you take it for granted, so not a big deal. If you think deeply about it, even Einstein said that there are only 2 ways to look at this world. Everything is a miracle or nothing is. And if you think really deeply, actually it is nothing short of a miracle that is unfolding in front of our eyes, and we are, just become so tuned to it that we take it for granted. Like people say that we don't have this or that. We have a lot of complaints in our mind, but if you look at it, we have so many things that God has given us. right? The faculties that he has given us. If somebody asks us to trade our eyes for, 10 or 50,000 or $100,000, we'll still not do that. Who will trade off their eyes for $100,000? That means we are already more than 100,000 or $1 million from that sense. So if you think deeply about it, there are enough things for us right from when we wake up to when we go back to sleep. The graces that we get from God to sustain ourselves and giving us the ability to become like our eternal Father. All that is available to us. So that attitude of gratitude draws, it's also part of surrender, where we are not taking anything for granted and we are expressing our sincere gratitude to God for every little and big thing that we are getting in this life. Now let's get on to our fifth concept. It's an important one. To see everything we possess as belonging to God. Now this principle, each principle is very deep, not limited to what we have discussed. If you think about it, there would be a new facet that might come to the fore when you think about it. Now this one, let's look at it, what it means. Our true identity is that of a soul, as you see the white spot within that body. And then we think of my body, right? My spouse, my kids, my family, my parents, my friends, my relatives, my bank account, the list can, my nationality, my country, and all that stuff. So when we get that my aspect right, we are actually violating this principle of understanding that nothing belongs to us. Everything actually can be snatched away in a second. When you think something is mine, we should have a control over it, right? Do we have? No, absolutely no. Anything and everything that we think is mine can be snatched away in a fraction of a moment, including our bank balance, relatives, or anything for that matter. Any relations that we hold dear to our heart, which we think are mine. Nothing is mine actually. So this whole world is created and it will continue to exist. It was there when we were born and it will continue to exist even after we are gone from this particular birth. And the true owner is the person who actually created it, which is Almighty Himself. So it is the proprietorship, the sense of proprietorship is how we need to look at each and everything that supposedly belongs to us or is awarded to us, including our relations. Right? There's a beautiful story about Shivaji. His guru says that he said, "What can I offer to you?" So he says, "Just offer your kingdom to me." So Shivaji puts a chit and offers at his feet. He said, "Here's my kingdom and it belongs to you from now on." The Guruji takes that kingdom. He said, "All right, I take this, I accept it. But now I give it back to you. And what do you need to do? Now run it as a trustee, not as an owner." So Shivaji would continue to rule, but now his consciousness has changed that he's no longer the king of that kingdom. He is actually he doesn't have that proprietorship anymore. So it's like more like running something like a trustee, right? Board of trustees like we have. So previously also he would have ruled his kingdom. Now also he's ruling his kingdom. What has changed? The consciousness has changed. And that changed consciousness makes all the difference. When we look at our relationships around us, starting with our kids, our relatives and everything that we have in life, more like a trustee as opposed to being an owner that we control, we want to influence, then that consciousness basically is what is aligning to the fifth principle of surrender, which means we are seeing everything as belonging to God and not something that we are the possessor or the owner of it. It's a very, very important concept. So when we worry about things that happen, right? So that means we are actually looking at it more like an owner and less like a, give me a sec, there's some problem. I will share it again. Yeah, so we are actually having this consciousness that it belongs to me. And that is when this worry comes. When something doesn't belong to you, you're truly looking at it as a trustee, then will you still have that kind of stress? Definitely not. It's only when we think it belongs to me, it's my parents. Oh, if I lose, what happens? If it's my relative, it's my kid, it's it's my material opulences, money, all that stuff. That is where the problem happens. So actually, if you think of it more like a trustee, you are actually lessening the burden on your mind and your shoulders as well. So that is the concept. I mean, it happens, but we have to practice it more consistently so that it gets deeply ingrained into our system. It's a very, very important concept, and it will relieve us of so many burdens that we have imposed on ourselves just because we think it is mine. And if I lose it, that fear, anxiety, and all the things start from this false sense of owning something. Nothing belongs to us actually. We are mere caretakers. Even with kids, we are facilitating their journey. We are caretakers of them. They come through us, not from us. It is a responsibility that has been bestowed to us by God to take care of our kids, to take care of our parents, relations, and all that stuff. More like a trustee, not like an owner, because none of it belongs to us, actually, if you think about it. Even money, for that matter, is an energy of God. It just flows. Just because we are endowed with it, it just means that God has dispensed it as based on our past karmas and all that stuff. But if we start holding it for our bhog enjoyment alone, then it starts becoming a problem. So if we have that consciousness that it is actually truly belongs to God and he has just given it to me to take care of it, so I need to put it to best use and not just for my enjoyment alone, that mindset shift alone is good enough for us to start complying to this particular aspect of surrender. All right, now let's get to the last but not the least. Now you have been following all these principles, right? So you are Sharanagati, right? Like this last piece is Sharanagati to this king. But then, as part of this, you think that, how Sharanagat or how surrendered I am. So that is also a kind of pride we can build, which is pretty interesting. It's a bit ironical, but it can happen. And none of us can actually escape from that if we don't have the tool of knowledge deeply embedded in our heads around it. It can soil our heart. So the proper way of looking at it is, if something worthwhile happens, it was only because God inspired my intellect in the right direction. The fact that I'm able to surrender or able to practice this mindset is because God has endowed me with this ability, not because I am so and so and I'm so great, I'm surrendered and people are not. That's not the right way of looking at it. And keep on reminding yourself that left up to us, our own selves, we would have never achieved that. Not even forget about having the spark. I mean, being able to practice this, we won't even have the spark. So it's only God's grace because of which we have that ability to practice surrender. So there's absolutely no reason for us to feel uh, proud about it. So this is the last aspect of surrender. Now, let's move on. What is grace? Right? The shloka talks about grace, tat prasadat param. That prasadat is basically grace. Now, what is grace? Let's look at it. Are you able to see my screen, or is it slow for you? Let me close a few things. Something is not right, but I can make it right. Sorry about that. Okay, let me share it again. All right, are you now? So getting back, what is grace? Let's talk a little bit about it. So there are two aspects of bhakti. One is called the preparatory bhakti, which is called sadhan bhakti, which is what we are trying to do, where we are trying to orient our mind towards the principles of devotion and bhakti. It would take effort. It takes effort in sadhan bhakti, where we are putting in our efforts to align to spiritual principles and doing our devotion and sadhana. It is called preparatory bhakti. And then comes the grace, which is the kripa or the mercy of God. And when our sadhan bhakti, God only knows when he starts gracing us with his sadhya bhakti, which is called, we don't know when, how, but he looks at our effort. So sadhan bhakti, when it is complemented with the grace aspect, that actually takes us on the path to God realization. So the important concept here to understand is that our sadhan bhakti is not good enough. We need grace of God, the kripa, to actually complete this process of God realization. So that is the important concept to understand. Now, it is a must-have on the path of God realization. Nobody can do it just based on their sadhan bhakti alone. Not possible. If you take grace out of the equation, grace of God, nothing is achievable. From a God realization is just not achievable. You can reach some advanced stages in your with regards to getting certain mystic abilities and siddhis and knowledge and all that stuff, but the process of God realization cannot be completed without this essential secret sauce or ingredient, which is called kripa or grace. Now, which begs the question, what is the price of grace? Now, grace is something which God has. Now, what is the price of grace? Now, let's look at this concept of price to begin with. Right? What is a price of something? Everything has a price tag to it in this world, right? What is the price of? How do we determine the price of something? Let's talk a little bit about it. We'll get a little bit into economics and look at this concept of price itself. So the price of what's going on? Something's not right. Are you able to see my screen? All right.
Yeah, Nitinji, for us, there's no issues, no problems at all.
Okay, that's fine then. All right. So the price of something is actually, I'm going to go into a little bit of economics, a little bit of management concepts as well, is equal to, as you can see, this athlete is ready, right? He's willing to run that 100-meter sprint, which is called willingness. Willingness of the buyer plus needs to have disposable income also. That is what determines the price of something, right? If people have willingness to buy, let's say, some branded stuff, but they don't have disposable income, then obviously that price will not matter at that point, right? So people need to have disposable income to begin with, and they need to have willingness to buy that particular thing, and then it becomes its price. It's very simple. So if you look at some of the big brands here, Nike, Louis Vuitton, Armani's, then cash in on that part. There is a willingness and people have disposable income. And willingness is to invest in that brand because you attach value to it. You think this is the fair amount you are willing to pay for it. Price doesn't have anything to do with how much it took somebody to prepare it. What a buyer is willing to give becomes the price of that particular thing, right? So these things might be prepared on the same factory line as some of the other products, but just because that brand is there and people attach value to it and they have disposable income, willingness to buy, it becomes the price of that thing. So its price might be 20 bucks, but if people are willing to pay 50,000 bucks for that, it becomes its price. That's as simple as that. The point here being, everything has a price tag. You pay for it, you meet that criteria of what the value of that particular object is, and then you get that, right? Now, how about the price of grace? And we are talking grace of God. What is the willingness? Willingness is the seeker mindset. You need to be a seeker or need to have a spiritual spark. This is where the willingness aspect comes. And what is the disposable income? It maps to the spiritual bank balance that you have. Are these two aspects good enough for us to get God's grace? Let's say we are a seeker, we have a spiritual spark, we want to know who God is, we want to progress on this path, and we want to attain God. That becomes we are seeker. And then we have acquired enough spiritual merit across different lifetimes or making endeavors to make further deposits in that bank balance. Are these two good enough? And let's look at some of the deposits, how we can make the deposits. Okay. Now we can make deposits with regards to reading all the scriptures. Some people say Swadhyay is the way to go. People think that if we read all the scriptures, acquire all the knowledge that is out there in our scriptures, that is what will take us close to God. That is one way of looking at spirituality as well. Reading all the scriptures or everything that we can lay our hand on, or anything and everything that comes to our way. It's one way of looking at it, right? Or let's say another withdrawal, I'm saying deposit you can make is meditating for 10,000 hours. You say, I prioritize meditation, and I will do my meditation, and I'm going to invest so many hours on it. Or if we continue to make deposits with regards to our meditation, is that something that will draw good God's grace? Or let's say chanting million times, right? We do malas, right? There is a tradition to keep on increasing, chanting 16 rounds every day, and then keep on increasing as best as you can and all that stuff. So let's say you chant million times, or let's say billion times, or let's say trillion times. Will that warrant an eligibility to draw God's grace? Or for that matter, let's say harnessing Kundalini, right? Kundalini, there are people who believe like that Kriya Yoga, if you continue to doing that, and if your Kundalini Jagaran happens, then that can draw God's grace or complete your process of spirituality with regards to realizing God. Right? That is also a practice that people do, or Ashtanga Yoga for that matter, that practice. So is there a certain practice when it reaches a tipping point or a particular threshold? That means now God's grace is going to intervene. That is what we are going to looking at right now. Or let's say we believe in austerities and penances, right? There are Babas which are called Dudahari Babas or Falahari Babas, or Pattahari Babas, or people who are doing austerities, standing on one leg or not wearing anything or matted hair and all that stuff. If you do severe austerities and penances, do we think we are going to attain God because of that? Is this sufficient for us to draw God's grace? So the bottom line here is, if any of these practices, right, will lead us to draw God's grace, essentially we are trying to put a number or a quantity or a quantum to the cost of purchasing God's grace, right? In the previous slide, we saw that cost of anything is nothing but the willingness and the balance that you need, basically, that you're willing to pay for that. And once you pay that, that becomes the price of that particular thing. Now, with regards to spirituality, if any of this practice could actually guarantee us, right, then it becomes the price of God's grace. Because you do this, you do Kundalini for so many years, for so many lifetimes, you do read all the scriptures, you meditate for 10,000 hours or maybe a billion hours, you chant trillion, quadrillion, how many times, you do so many penances, and then you attain God. That means it becomes price of God. That means this is the cost you pay, and draw God's grace. Say, God, I've done it. Can you please give it to me? Our scriptures say no. Actually, God's grace is priceless. You can't put a price to it. There's a story. There was a guy who was actually worshipping God, and then finally God appears in front of him. And when God appears, so he said, tell me, what do you want? Right? That is a tradition or a ritual God follows. Whenever he comes, he says, okay, I'm going to give you some wish. So this guy says, of course, you have to, right? Because I've been doing my devotion and this worshipping for so many years. Of course, you have to give that. So God was quiet for a long time. So this guy was trying to settle accounts with God that, I gained eligibility for it and you have to give me. And then the boulder on which he was sitting replied, he said, okay, God, he's trying to settle accounts with you. Let me settle my accounts with him as well. He has been sitting on my head for the last 1,000 years. Can you first make me sit on his head for the next 1,000 years? So the point here being, we can't settle accounts with God, and we cannot put a price to his grace. It is causeless and it is priceless. It is divine, perfect, and infinite. So there is no price tag to it. No matter what you do, you cannot say that I have done enough to draw God's grace, or I am entitled to it, or I have gained eligibility for it. Nothing, no matter what practice you do. There's absolutely no formula given in our scriptures that if you do this practice for so long, God has to intervene. God has to give you grace. No. Then what is that? Have we hit some kind of a roadblock here? How do we draw God's grace? And that is where we have been discussing all along. The principle of drawing God's grace is surrender. And this is what we have discussed in all the 6 principles of surrender. And I hope that's making sense now, because we have been discussing surrender in great depths, and there is no price tag related to drawing God's grace other than perfecting our surrender. That is the only thing we have. And what do we need to surrender? We need to surrender our mind. Now, one may come and say, why do we need to draw God's grace and surrender? Why do we need to achieve God? I'm happy in this world. Yeah, that's a fair ask. I mean, a lot of people would say, why all this hocus pocus stuff? We enjoy life. So many parties and relations and so many things to do. They say that there are two mehfils, spiritual and the material ones. We are happy. I mean, that's a fair argument if they say that. Now let's look at it. Why scriptures say you need to break out of this matrix. We are going to answer that from scriptures. They are saying you need to get out of it. So let's look at the things that we all are subjected to, and that gives us a good reason, incentive, motivation, or possibly a business case to actually think about breaking this matrix. How do we break this matrix? If we have to break this matrix, we need God's grace. How do we get God's grace? By perfecting our surrender. How do we surrender? Those 6 principles of surrender. But the question mark is, why do we even need to get out of this world? Right? I'm perfectly happy repeating here. Let's tackle that question as well and get our discussion going a little bit on that as well. So why do we need God's grace? Why do we need to get out of this world? Right? That is a very valid question. It is because these are the things that none of us is immune from. And if we are happy living with it, dealing with it, lifetime after lifetime, dealing with the anxiety, insecurities, amongst so many other things, and that suspenseful life where anything can happen at any moment to anybody, like walking through a treacherous forest, then it's fine. We don't need to. Nobody is compelling us to do that. That is anyway our default setting. And what are these problems? It is Jan, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Scriptures, Bhagavad Gita tells us birth, death, old age, and death. Nobody is immune from that. And nobody has a formula to prolong our life. These 4 things will happen no matter what. Panchaklesh, Rag, Dvesh, Asmita, Vidya, Abhivinesh, ignorance, Abhivinesh, Rag, Dvesh, all these problems are there. Tridosh, Kaf, Vat, Pit, because of which we have diseases. Nobody is immune to diseases. As Tetap, Adi Bhautik, Adi Devik, Adhyatmik, we have spoken about it. The tsunamis, the COVID, and then accidents, and then Kashmir files, all that stuff we spoke about. Nobody is immune from that. Panchakosh, Anname, Praname, when there's an imbalance, all the diseases happen. Mind troubles us. Our mind troubles us, and that is where the Vyadhi starts. Like when Ram Bhagwan had asked Vashisht, where does the disease begin? He said it's in the mind, the thoughts. So these koshas we have to deal with. And the Trikarma, Sanchit, Prarabdh, Kriyaman. No escape from Prarabdh. We continue to do Kriyaman, make choices, and Sanchit anyway we have to deal with. So basically, there's absolutely no way out of this matrix. And if you're happy, God says, be my guest. No need. If you think next life you want to become a better actor, a better person, or better sportsman, or maybe learn guitar, or play some music, or at least be born in Hawaii, or at least become a president for one lifetime, or maybe become Indra, God said, all right, continue. I'm in no hurry. So if we want to continue to deal with this, then yes, world is anyway there. We don't have to put an effort. We just have to keep living through it. And there's absolutely no effort needed there. So with that, let's open it up to questions. Any questions that you may have, or any thoughts, remarks on the discussion that we had regarding grace, that it is priceless, the tenets of surrender we spoke about, and more importantly, if somebody has this thought process that Maya is there to be enjoyed, there is a good reason. God has created Maya. And if he has created Maya, then why not enjoy it? So I want to have a bit of a discussion on that, because this concept is not properly understood. Yes, enjoying Maya is fine. You can enjoy Maya with proper consciousness too. But the way we enjoy it is through bhog aspect of it. And that is where it starts getting wrong, and we start doing binding karma. With that, I'll open it up to see what participants have to say about today's discussion, or they want to add any stuff to what we discussed today, or any questions around it. I know we covered a lot today.
Yeah, Nitinji, can I please take a moment for quick announcements?
You can take 2 moments, not one.
So there are two main announcements for today. One is for Chaitra Navratri Ram Navami celebration, which is going to start from April 1st through April 10th, 2022. And this is going to be like Sri Ram Charit, Ram Pujan, 108 Sankshipt Ramayan, Ram Janam and cake cutting, and there are lots and lots of program. Mata Ki Chauki, Durga Ashtami Havan. There are a lot of programs in the temple and online. So that is one very good thing that we can enjoy it online as well. So please do not forget to take a look at this one. This is going to be wonderful celebration. The next one is about the early bird. Give me just a moment. I'll just take out that email about that. So early bird registration for family camp is going to end by April 12th. So please do hurry and grab your spot. This is going to be one of its own kind immersive sadhana experience and family camp with Swamiji. And special highlight will be celebrating Jagat Guru Kripaluji Maharaj's birthday and lots of other eventful program with Swamiji. So this is a spiritual retreat and family camp going to be on June 24th through June 30, 2022. So please go ahead and register now, and please take your early bird charges.
Right. And Shyamji is being sponsored by me, and Shyamji is sponsored another 5. Okay. So that's how it's going to be like. So please do plan for the family camp. It's going to be a great event. Look forward to seeing you, meeting you in person during that event. And yeah, do check it out around that as well.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Nitinji. And also, I'm going to post the link for the feedback tracker. Please go ahead and put your questions, comments, feedbacks in the feedback tracker. And all the other links I'm going to post in the chat shortly. So
Please
thank
do
you
that.
for waiting. Yeah.
Yes. Please do fill out the feedback tracker. I'm not getting many questions, which is both good and bad. But yeah, do put in your remarks about the session and stuff like that. Always helps me. And I'm going to post a video link today that you can share, for the benefit of people who may be interested in joining this session as well. So let me do that as well. Let's get this discussion going. By the way, there's a Charvak philosophy about material world as well, Bhautikvad. He says that Geo khao piyo, Geo karza karke ghee piyo, right? So it's like one life, just enjoy it to the best. And that philosophy is there as well. Scriptures tell us no. Okay, if you go with that mindset, it's not very sustainable. And it's fine. You actually can enjoy this world as well. Maya, it's not bad or good. But the problem is we have become bhogis. We have become selfish. That is where the whole problem happens. And maybe on Friday, we'll see if we can get time. I'll bring in that Chulan Leela aspect of it, in how when you give, you get much more in return. And that bliss continues to multiply. But when we think we can hold it, extract it, take it for us, that's where the problem starts happening. And material world is actually called a reformatory for conditioned souls who have turned their backs to God. So it's not a place of enjoyment anyways. As scriptures say, it's like a jailhouse. Maya is an inferior energy of God, will give you inferior results only. When you start attaching your mind to God's superior energy, that's when you'll get superior results. But if we are happy being mediocres, backbenchers, God says, take your time. I'm in no hurry. I've seen you long enough. And I have all the patience in the world to wait for you. Okay, let's get this discussion going then.
Nitinji, whatever people are trying to enjoy, but anyways, it can be snatched at any point of time also. That is the misery of life. If we can keep loving someone, but we can't fight against death, right?
Very true. And if you look at it, tragedies can strike anybody at any moment. Not that we become scared, but we start looking at life in perspective, right? We don't know what kind of prarabdha is awaiting us. So if we prepare ourselves proactively and think about breaking this matrix for our own good, That is a better way of approaching life, as opposed to saying, oh my God, what happened? That can happen, right? It's like, that is what life is all about. So if you develop perspective, that makes it very easy. It's a freedom. It's a freedom. It's a huge burden off your mind when you start developing that perspective, right? It's just like that train journey where everybody who's traveling with you has its own ticket, and they have to get down at their station. Are we going to accompany them? No. If you tell them, can you continue journey with us, they'll say no. And that is what life is actually truly about. Okay, let's hear. And in the meantime, I will also post something. If you can share it with your friend, we have created a bit of a small video, promotional video for our sessions. If you like it, please do share. Would be helpful as well. Yes, let's get the discussion going.
Thank you for waiting, Jyoti ji. Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yes, Jyoti.
Radhe Radhe, Pallavi ji and Nitin ji and everybody. Grace is such a dear topic to me because of all people, I know that I don't deserve Bhagwanji's kindness, and that is the grace that he showers on his devotees without us having done anything to deserve it. That is the definition of grace. And one small example is Meera's bhajan that I have listened to, Maine Lino Govind Mol. In the bhajan, somebody asked Meera, "Mol liya to kya diya?" What did you pay to buy Bhagwanji's love? And Meera's answer is that wo aate prem ke mol. There is only, you just have to pay in love and nothing else. And that is the only thing that we can pay, because everything else is a blessing from God himself. So it's not like as though we can give him any material wealth or anything else. And that bhajan is so beautiful. If you have a chance, please listen to it. There is that aspect of Manilino Govind Mol, ढोल बजा के लिया भगवान जी को, not just chup chup ke nahi liya. And that's a beautiful bhajan. And the other example of grace that I can think of is the Damodar Leela, where Bhagwanji is tied to the and Bhagwanji gives the rope is always short by do anguli, and that do anguli that Bhagwanji showers upon Yashoda Ma is the grace that she's able to tie him with the rope of her affection. So I just wanted to share that, but this is such a beautiful topic. Thank you for sharing this, Nitinji.
Yep, very true. And Damodar Leela, yeah, that's true. God can only be enslaved with love. And that is why love is the driving emotion, and even in this world. The only problem happens is it becomes diluted when it gets tainted with selfishness. Otherwise, it's a very, very powerful and a pure emotion. And
that's true. And in the material world, it is more of the aspect of I liked 5 Facebook posts of yours, how come you didn't like mine, that sort of thing. Silliness comes into it, where I scratch your back, you scratch mine, that sort of a thing. Yeah. Give and take. But with Bhagwanji, it is all, we are always taking and he's always giving. Radhe Radhe.
Very true. Everything is give and take in this world. Yeah. My mom had started telling me, why don't you like that person's post? And I said, all right, thank you very much. I'll just go off the social media itself. Okay. Too much of pressure, liking, somebody, otherwise they will mind. And people are breaking relationship on social network only these days. So yeah, a lot of virtual stuff happening right now. But it's a give and take for sure in this world. And when we start perfecting our love, and when you do it, not because you're expecting in return, that is what God wants from us. Not even a trace of selfishness. And then God says, now you're ready for me as well. Yes, let's hear.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jyoti ji. And Shruti ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Beautiful points, Jyoti ji. Yes, Shruti.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Nitin, Radhe Radhe Pallavi ji. So I have a question that if we say that there's no price to God's grace, then you must have heard like jo log mannat mangte hain, that I'll give you this, or I'll keep fast for let's say 100 days, or I'll silly things even, that I'll do this for you, and I want this in return, then how does that work? Because it does work, because it fulfills, and that's why, we see so many nariyal and stuff in the temples.
There's no concept of mannat, okay? If you statistically log it, right, how many mannats are actually happened? So God is not whimsical. You can't bribe God. It's as simple as that. So you are anyway going to get what you are it's written in your prarabdha. So sometimes you will get, sometimes you will not get. If you got it, somebody will say, oh, I did that mannat, because of that I got it. And word of mouth, we are willing to believe in something greater for these kind of things anyways. And that is how it keeps on traveling. So this concept of mannat and all, actually, it's give and take with God is just not recommended in the path of devotion. If you have to ask God for something, you ask for, that his darshan and for his divine love, nothing more than that. Because God is smart. God knows what is best for you. He will not keep on giving you candies like, we give candies to our kids when they demand it, like they throw their tantrums? No, we don't. We know what is good for them. And sometimes the good things come in bitter packages also, because it is good for us. So God doesn't need to be bribed. God doesn't need a mannat or a thread ceremony for us to bestow his grace. He will give us regardless. And he knows what are our best interests. But this all is farce. We need to get out of these habits. Doesn't happen, doesn't matter actually. This concept of mannat and going there and doing this transactional relationship is something that needs to be broken in the path of devotion. It is business. We are vapar, we are doing with God. I do this. If you do this, I'll do this. Or if I do this, I want this from you. In devotion, we have to, this is the first thing we need to break in our heads.
Thank you.
Well said, Nitinji. Singalji, SK Singalji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Prabhu Nitinji.
Radhe Radhe. Surendraji.
This is
I just
Surendraji.
wanted to.
Oh, today his name is SK Singal, so I was like,
okay, this because of the laptop.
Prabhuji, if you had R also in between, you would have become SRK Singal, okay?
So nice of you.
Yeah.
So nice of you.
Right,
I only wish to consider the sentence you have spoken. Can we at all enjoy Maya? Or it is the other way around?
So
Maya enjoys us.
Nobody's enjoying anybody. We are thinking it seems like as we are enjoying. I gave you an example. Enjoying Maya is just like that dog chewing on a dry bone.
Yeah.
And after a while, when it starts chewing, it's actually its own blood that it's tasting. That is what enjoyment of Maya is. So Maya is neither good nor bad. We just have to look at it in perspective and utilize it for our spiritual growth. That is the right perspective to live in this world. And in the process, you will anyway get the peace, enjoyment, entertainment, joy, bliss, basically, I should say, not entertainment, that you need actually on this path. Okay, it's a dry path where you get bored. If I don't do parties or if I don't become this, I will not enjoy. No, the bliss that you get on this path is much higher than that. But the perspective has to be tweaked, and it will take a bit of an unconditioning, unlearning to get into that mode, because we are habituated to seeking for ourselves and those trivial things, catering to our lower nature. It's just like a drug addict. It can't let go of a drug overnight. Systematically, it has to be, that habit has to be dismantled. So enjoying Maya is a concept. We can brood upon it, but actually it doesn't take us far. That bhog will only lead to rog, and the yoga is what God is asking of us.
We must thank God for creating Maya. That is the catalyst for all of even if we have to surrender, it is because we are experiencing Maya. Therefore, we think of coming to CICE, coming to JK Yoga. For all these things, we must thank Maya. And for that, we need to thank the God that created Maya. Thank you.
Yeah, Maya Devi will keep on slapping us from time to time to remind.
Yeah, that is required.
This is not the right place for you, right? So when our so that will happen. That is the job of Maya actually, right? When you get to a jailhouse, if you ask the inmates, "Are you happy?" They will say no. So that is a good thing. If they say we are happy, then it's a bad thing. That means the purpose of jail is not being served. So that is how Maya is as well.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe. Surendraji.
Radhe Radhe Pragya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Pragya ji.
Radhe Radhe Nitin and Radhe Radhe Pallavi ji and everyone. Yeah, beautiful topic, and I really like this attitude of gratitude. And Jyoti ji's line prompted one or two lines in me from Maharaj's bhajan. I just want to share that. One is like मोल अमोलक लीजिए पिया. And another line from this very famous Hari Bol chanting is Hari Hari bol kar le le Hari Mol. Sirf unka naam lene se you can enslave God. Sirf pyar se you can just enslave God. He is wo anmol ratan, the treasure house of everything that we see. We don't need any richness. We just need our bhav. We just need love. And it is such a I really love those mol amolak anmol ratan aap le lete hain just with creating beautiful bhavs. And as Nitin had mentioned, like 1,000 chantings or crores of Sundarkand part, and whatever part, the element of love has to be there in whatever way we pray or we choose to pray. Again, it is from a prayer that I had heard in Swamiji's lecture, कि भाव वाले भक्त का संपूर्ण मुझ पर भार है. It is from that prayer. If there is time, I can just recite it quickly. भाव का भूखा हूँ मैं, बस भाव ही इकसार है. भाव से मुझको भजो तो भव से बेड़ा पार है. भाव बिन सुनी पुकारे मैं कभी सुनता नहीं. भाव की एक टेर भी करती मुझे लाचार है. भाव बिन सब कुछ दे डालो मैं कभी लेता नहीं. भाव वाले भक्त का एक पुष्प भी स्वीकार है. भाव जिस जन में नहीं उसकी मुझे चिंता नहीं. भाव वाले भक्त का संपूर्ण मुझ पे भार है. I really love this line. बांध लेते भक्त मुझको भाव की जंजीर में, इसीलिए इस भूमि पर होता मेरा अवतार है. Yeah, the more and more blessings we realize, the more and more grace we realize, the more and more grace we invite in our life, and this attitude of gratitude shifts us from a complaint mode and so many modes that we are fighting day in and day out. Thank you so much, Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful
Thank
point.
you, Nitin, for this beautiful session also.
Thank you, Pragyadi, for the beautiful recitation, and love that. Maybe you can share that poem. It really encapsulates the discussion that we are having here today. So God is called Bhav Grahi. He eats bhav, actually, not the actual food, even when we offer that to him. Great point. Yes, quite a few hands. We can take those.
Sunil ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Sunil ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Sunil ji.
Pragya ji, Radhe Radhe Nitin ji. Fantastic session. Actually, I don't know. Again, it's like a coincidence. Whatever my mind thinks, Nitin ji says it, everything here about the Maya. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, Sunil ji, you are audible.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just had an experience with Maya actually. I mean, initially I was into reading a lot of books and etc. Then off late I suddenly started, what do you say, surfing internet, joining Facebook, other media, social media, and etc. And believe me, I was so much into it that it really almost killed me to an extent. I mean, it's like I was like almost without seeing them, my whole day would not go. I can't sleep and etc. So I made it a point to get myself away, be my detox myself from all this social medias and etc. So I got successfully. I took off from Facebook. So now I no more have Facebook access with me. But still, I feel going into other sites, and it looks like Maya still hits me hard. I mean, yesterday and day before yesterday, I was again browsing sites and etc. And I felt so bad that why am I doing? I mean, I could have focused on my studies, reading, and etc. Everything. So Nitinji, I want to know that if once we get removed from this, again when we fall back, what are the chances that we come out of it again? Do we go deeper and deeper, or should we? I mean, is there a possibility that we have to climb again? I mean, climb again, but still go 10 times further down? Yeah, this is my question.
Yeah, it's basically our sanskars, they keep on fluctuating. So when your sanskars are good, you'll be able to exercise more restraint. You will feel more inspired. Your mind will knock. You're wasting your time. All that things will come in naturally to you. And when your sanskars are bad, which can fluctuate anytime, then the same thing, you will start getting mellow or rust in material things. It's like, all right, I did it, that's fine. So those are the times it's like swimming against the tide. And that is where you have to bring in that knowledge and fight with your mind. You have to struggle with your mind. There is no other way out, because every moment where you let your mind follow the object or the temptation that it is seeking, you are empowering your mind. And every moment you tame it back and do thing which against your mind, you are empowering your intellect. So the battle between mind and intellect, you have to keep on empowering your intellect, because the more you empower your mind, the more powerful it becomes and more it will make you dance to your tune. So those sanskar play will be there anyways. It will not be same always, but that those are the times when we have to fight even harder. And God notices that. He knows this is trying. And if you have a guru, in fact, they say your gurus actually tries to remove those kind of sanskars, especially if you're on the path of devotion. He knows that you're working, some bad sanskars have come. So we think we are doing Guru Seva, actually Guru is doing our Seva. That is where the real benefit of having a realized Guru comes. They fight with our sanskars, they do the course correction for us, so that, when we have started on this path, it continues. But yes, we have to put in our effort. Those times will come. So if you can, first we have to acknowledge it and then say, no, I will not do it. And then gradually we will start getting better at it. But yeah, it can happen. I can understand. It's not so easy for sure. Right? If I start watching Click Info at times, I'm reading about Shane Warne, then I realize, what am I doing? And then I try to map it to Bhagavad Gita. Maybe some concept I'll pick up. So your mind tricks you. We need to just get better at it. Facebook and all those distractions have cut in long back. I knew if I'll start doing it, I'll see 10 different things. So I said, okay, let me just cut it off. And my life has become very peaceful. No Instagram, no Facebook, nothing. WhatsApp is my problem because I have to be on WhatsApp. Otherwise, I will be like complete digital detox. I don't know any news. My parents or somebody would tell me what's going on in the world. So I try to cut that because I know it can suck you and take away a lot of your time. So some of those things we have to implement, what we think is working for us, right? Some people might be good at it. I'm not good at it. Where I'm looking at Facebook, also doing that also. I've just cut it out completely. No more of it.
Yeah, beautifully said, Nitinji. I have read one, I have seen one video of Swamiji where he says that do not listen to your mind. That's a beautiful video. And I think that was really very powerful.
Always think of your mind like that friend, who will come when your exam is there. Hey, what are you doing? Are you studying? Why are you taking so much of tension, right? Just before the exam, that friend will come who has prepared everything, who will take you up. Come, let's watch this movie or do that. That is how our mind is. So it is that sweet friend of yours which is always derailing you. If you consider that, that is how our mind is, until we have exercised enough restraint on it to make it our best friend. We have not done that so far. Bhagavad Gita shloka is there. It can be your best friend and the worst enemy. Right now, our mind is our enemy. The day we becomes our friend, then we can start listening to it. Till then, we have to be very, very careful about what our mind, and it will justify itself with everything.
Very well said. Yeah. Maybe in this case, we need to cut off the internet.
I don't know. So yeah, we can exercise restraint as best as we can, but got to be practical as well, right? Technology is a bit like riding a tiger. You can't get off it, because when you get off it, the tiger will eat you. So there's a bit of technology you have to deal with regardless, right?
Become Durga, so ride on it, tame the tiger.
Tame the tiger, yeah. See, all the session that we are having, or the fact so many people got the link and felt inspired to join these sessions, happening only because of technology. So technology in itself is not bad. How we put it to use is what makes it good or bad. So nothing is bad actually in this Maya. It's the way we utilize it makes it good or bad.
Very well said. Yeah. Thank you. Radhe Radhe, Lakshmi ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe, Pallavi ji. My question has put in chat, but you didn't read Pallavi ji. So
Sorry,
Is that
Lakshmiji,
the
if I
price?
missed
Yeah,
that.
sure, sure. Okay.
Voice is
Is it the price of grace? Can we equal it to our karmas?
Yes, I
price
see.
of grace to our karma. Karma to an extent that how much we have surrendered, right? If we are 10% surrendered, then you have 90% more price to pay. If we are 20% surrendered, then you have 80% more. So the more surrender we perfect in this life, the less price we have to pay down the line. So, but God only can decide, God only can determine when our surrender is complete. We cannot claim now we are 100% Sharnagat. Because he's seated with
That's what.
us.
So unless a kamasar is completed, and now we have been surrendered. So now surrendered, but our karmas are still there, which we have to pass through. So
God,
grace won't come to us.
yeah. So when you are perfectly surrendered, Lord Krishna says, Sarva Pape, he's going to burn off all your past karmas. That is his grace. Otherwise, even after surrender, we'll have to take millions of births again just to exhaust our sanchit karmas. So Krishna says, when you have perfected your surrender, I will burn off your stockpile. Done deal. It's like all the homework is cancelled. Done. It's his huge mercy. That's what he says in 18th chapter.
Yes.
So it's a huge mercy. Otherwise, we cannot exhaust our sanchit karmas. How many lives will we continue repeating? So Krishna says, okay, I'll make it easy for you. You'll be excused from your future homework.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Lakshmiji. Hope your question is answered.
Yeah.
There is one more question from Anusha ji. Can there be a point in time where all souls in God's creation have surrendered?
Theoretically, yes, but doesn't look like. I don't know how many Brahmans and how many lives we have taken. And God himself is says Bahu Janmanante. After multiple innumerable lifetimes, very rare soul actually has a spark, and amongst them also very rare soul actually starts treading this path, and amongst them also a very rare soul actually realizes me. So it's not that everybody and anybody, maybe that's the design, that's how it goes, but every day it is said infinite number of souls across Brahmands are realizing God. And we still have so many people, work in progress. If you look at the ratios around yourself, out of 7 or 8 billion people, how many would actually be reading Bhagavad Gita on a daily basis? Very few. So we are amongst the fortunate ones. So those ratios are usually, they are skewed. It's like very few people. That is how typically the ratios go, because we are so happy enjoying Maya only, right? You don't want to get out of it. It's like, okay, maybe not this life, next time I'll extract all the fun. God, give me at least one more life so that I can do this. Or at least, I'm not happy, but I know a few people who are happy. Only if I ever was like that. So those desires always remain. And every lifetime we go with such desires. And God, like indulgent father, says, okay, take another chance. Surendraji,
sorry, where is I can't
so
okay, I found.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, we want to enjoy Maya. We don't want to get out of it. Trust me. Ask yourself. We don't want to. We have so many agendas we think we have not fulfilled yet. And God says, you take your time. The day you are convinced, I'm waiting for you. And that is what makes us repeat in this world. Okay. Couple of other hands. See.
Thank you for waiting, Padmaji. Please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Padmaji.
Radhe Radhe. While we have this treacherous path and lifetime for God realization, few things, at least through my struggles, just wanted to share some things, right? So information is provided to you and it comes to you, but for that information to become you, not that you're looking at that information and you're listening to that information has to become you. And for that, the first step, at least I'm speaking from for that information to actually become me, I have to deeply contemplate of what are the conflicts that are not allowing me to actually even accept that information and that spiritual information. Some information comes to me, for example, right? The 6 steps that was given to me. okay, what is really stopping me from actually even properly understanding this 6 steps? So I have to go through those steps. I have to go through this. Maybe somebody can go from step 1 to step 3. So I have to really contemplate on each one of those things deeply and say, what is that which is really stopping, which is the contemplation process that I have to do. And the next thing is to try adjuvant with the very conviction that I want to implement this, and please God, give me that strength to actually implement it. And then the next step would be actually imbibing it, and those imbibing things will gradually come, not the way that you expect, but it might come in a different way, in a different scenario and different something, a baby, a small, tiny drop somewhere in your system, the body, mind, and soul. And that tiny imbibement would actually give you more strength to go through this process of what is that, contemplation and implementation, and actually imbibing that. And when I go through this process many times, and every circumstances, and every time it happens to me, that I come to a situation and I really have to think about this, right? Like the word that if I may, I can use this word, dharma sankat, right? Sankat is any situation which comes your way, whether it is a physical person, emotional disturbance, psychological disturbance, health disturbance, any disturbance which come to your way, whether it's body, mind, and soul. I have to deeply convict myself that I don't want to avoid that situation, but how can I assess that situation, and how can I respond to this situation and react to this, not react to the situation spiritually. So I think what it does to me, at least, is it leaves me with the peace that I have done the right thing, or the dharma, at least to my understanding. It might not be rightly in coordinates with God wants, but at least in my mind, I have a peace that I have stayed with the dharma and I have not avoided that situation. Don't avoid the situation, but rather find and beg God to give you that strength to actually face that situation. For example, if I have to give an example, this is a very deep concept and very difficult for people to accept culturally also. Somebody does really something bad to you. And then we can ask ourselves, oh, how do we love that person who really done bad to you? It's not about that person. It is about you, who are still willing to love that person, not for things that they have done, but out of you, that you're still going to give that sympathy and empathy to that situation and love that person as they are. Doesn't mean that you have to deal with that person, but just love them as you can, as what you want to be. That will give you that adulation, that gives you that conviction that I am trying. And I think that is what God wants to see. Are you really truly trying? You can fail, but are you at least trying?
Right. It's basically taking it a step further, where you're not only understanding the principle, but implementing it the most hardest way. Somebody who has actually troubled you, harmed you, you're trying to bring in compassion, empathy for them as well. Wonderful. I mean, if we can actually break that corner, nothing like it. And I think you touched upon a very interesting point, that information. Einstein had said that experience is knowledge, rest all is mere information. So yes, when you start imbibing it and pray to God that I can not only understand it in its entirety, not through my limited prism alone, and then give me the ability to be able to implement it, is, I think that's a great prayer to have. And I'm sure God actually will help us on that path as well. Beautiful point, Padmaji. Let's see one more hand real quick.
Yeah, Padmaji, I just wanted to mention that the way you articulate beautifully things in such short span of time, every time I get pleasantly surprised in each and every class, in each and every session. So really great job, the great talent that God has given you.
Yeah, Padmaji actually downloads it directly from Brahmand. Okay, she just has to close her eyes and it all flows down.
Yeah, she closes her eyes so everything flows. So what is the magic, Padmaji? You have to share with us.
That is the holy magic, okay, because she comes and played holy. So no, I think you can talk about that. But yeah, I love reading this stuff. But that is where I think you need to really benefit all of us, not just what you articulate here, but also by writing, which can get documented for everybody to read through and even do an offline review when time permits them. So thank you so much, Padmaji, for that.
Thank you, Padmaji. Sandhya ji, last but not the least.
Yes, Sandhya.
Radhe Radhe. I actually just wanted to add my perspective with respect to what Sunil ji had asked, like, that we get attached to social media or whatever. So I feel instead of putting an extra effort to try to detach, another way out is to just attach to something else, transfer your attachment. And that can lead to anarth nivritti. I mean, that's something that I personally felt like, when I started attending these sessions, when I started um, listening to JK Yoga bhajans, or even 21-day mind management challenge, I did not have time, or I did not even think that I want to go back and scroll Facebook or Insta.
Wonderful.
So that is, and that just makes those things effortless rather than putting an extra effort to detach, or, yeah, that's what I just wanted to add.
Yes, it'll start seeming insipid to you after a while. It automatically happens. You'll start losing interest in it. But then we have to be watchful around our lower nature, because it says that the biggest impediment to higher goal is an easier route to a short, lower goal. So sometimes our mind is like, okay, let me get a quick kick. What's happening in the world? What is it? Let me look at that picture. So it all adds up. So we got to be cautious about that as well. Because when our sanskars, they start fluctuating, sometimes you can get sucked into it, and then you realize, oh my God, started losing time again, wasting time again. But great point, Sandhya. If you direct it, like I see Minuji and all, they use Facebook extensively. And she keeps on telling me, why don't you come and do that? I said, all right, I'll do that. But honestly, I struggle to find time to even get there and do that. But then if you look at them, they have actually dovetailed same social media, but they put posts, and so many people are benefiting because of it, right? People are getting messages, they get inspired, and who knows who's coming on a given day. I hear examples that somebody was working in office and they just came across this, they made to this session, and that since then they got hooked onto it. So we don't know whom God is going to bless at what moment, because their time has come, and you may become an instrument in that, right? So that simple sharing can go a long way in helping somebody. We never know. So don't be attached to the result that it should help, but then you keep on doing your stuff and you never know who might come and start benefiting from it as well, right? So that's the whole idea. But yes, we can channelize it and start utilizing it so that it's beneficial and not something that we are just idling and spending our time on. So ways to look at that. Beautiful.
So, Nitinji, Seema ji has mentioned in the chat that empowering the Atma in the chariot of life harness our mind and ego easier.
Beautiful point. Yes, very nice. Kathopanishad, we have gone through that chariot for a week, so we will again bring that chariot maybe in one of our future sessions. Yeah.
So it seems like Sandhya ji, you were not the last one. So
we can really quickly take that. I know, Pallavi.
yeah, Shyam ji, go ahead.
Late for you, so 2 minutes and we'll wrap up.
I just want to share my experience that the grace of God, the God has His all power, His all mercy. In my case, He snatched all from me, and now today I'm with God's grace. I'm everywhere. And about this second point about Facebook, I am here because of Facebook. Because as I told earlier also, last year January 1st, 2nd, I guess, something popped up, and since then I'm here. So I guess it's thanks to the technology and Facebook I'm here today. Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful point. Very true. So I shared a video. Please share it. Okay. Somebody may get inspired. So our video team actually put in some effort for that. So do check it out. Hopefully it resonates with some.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
real
can
quick.
share in the chat as well. Yeah.
30 seconds each. Let's do that.
Rupa ji, Radhe Radhe. Yeah, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Sorry, actually, I had just one point about the Facebook, because I'm not aware of Facebook. I check my Facebook once or twice, but watching some recipes and some quotations will be there, right? So I like only few quotations. I always keep in mind, like how you said, if I don't like someone, they may get hurt or something like. So I just like the photos, like my family and friends, if they have put, and the quotations which are really worth it to read once, or sometimes as per your mood. We say that as per your mood, if you listen to the music also, we catch the lyrics if we are in a sad mood. In the same way that quotations, sometimes those are very inspirational, like inspired some people without knowingly. So always my friends used to say, whenever we see a forward from you or a post of you, we mostly see the quotations and we wait to see your quotations, and those inspires me a lot. I got confused. Really? Am I doing that? Sometimes I feel like, but we never know how it touches the other people. Yeah, only I do that part in the Facebook actually. I don't post all the things,
Right.
but yeah.
Right.
Sometimes we never know how it touches the people's life. That's it.
If you can exercise it with prudence, yes, it can actually benefit people. Beautiful point. Thank you so much, Rupaji.
Yes,
Last one, Sri Ramyaji, real quick.
Ramyaji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead. Ramyaji, are you able to unmute?
Yes, I
go ahead.
think I was unmuting and you were muting, something happened like that. Radhe Radhe everyone. I just had a small request. The poem what Pragyaji shared, if it could be posted for us to read. It was very touching, and I was just thinking on that poem, even though Nitinji was speaking to the class. It was
I'll get it from her and post it on the group. Okay, let me take upon that. So I'll try to get it.
That's it. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, thank you. All right, tomorrow we will continue our journey with 4.12 after a long gap. And who wants to, Sandhya, you want to do the closing prayers today? Sarve Bhavantu, you know that, or you need the screen? Okay, go ahead then.
Go ahead, Sandhya.
Yeah, okay. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you again, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day and a great rest of your evening. Shamji, we need to talk very soon, okay? I know I owed you a call, so I'll talk to you soon.
Radhe
Radhe Radhe. Good night. Good day,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you, Nitinji, for such an awesome session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.